Frisco, The Secret History, a podcast.
Don't call it Frisco. So proclaimed San Francisco Chronicle columnist Herb Caen, Mr. San Francisco himself. He wrote a book called Don't Call It Frisco, published in 1953. As I mentioned in the first episode of The Secret History of Frisco, I have caught a little bit of attitude from some people about the use of the term Frisco in the title. And while I do understand Frisco is Frisco, and this podcast is about Frisco, to be honest, I've never called San Francisco Frisco myself, outside of this podcast. Well, maybe a couple of times in my teens and early 20s trying to be cool. Like most people around here, I just call it the city. San Francisco took its name officially in 1847 from the already well-known and agreed-upon name of the bay, which is the Bay of San Francisco, although sailors had already been referring to the town, the port, and the surrounding region as San Francisco for years. The earliest known use of Frisco, according to the Random House Historical Dictionary of American Slang, is from an 1849 letter written during the Gold Rush. The letter was written by a New Englander whose name I cannot find. But he had recently arrived by ship. He uses both the abbreviation and the full name. Made good passage to Frisco. Captain David Carter of Beverly, Massachusetts, died on the passage out. Think San Francisco the most contemptible, dirty place one could ever wish to see. Not fit for man or beast. He probably didn't stick around long. Or maybe he struck gold. Who knows? The first usage of Frisco in a publication dates back to March 9, 1850, in the Placer Times newspaper in Sacramento. It read, "A correspondent in a Frisco paper, writing from this city, says he saw a female pedestrian galloping through our streets. Hope she had a good time." I've found several instances of this quotation online, and I imagine it's supposed to be humorous. That said, 175 years later, I do not get the joke. The term Frisco crops up some more that year in the Placer Times, the Sacramento Transcript, and the Sacramento Daily Union, and gained widespread usage in subsequent years. Daisy Behringer on the Thrillist website posited that the actual no apostrophe word Frisco goes back to Middle English and means a port where ships could be repaired. It's possible that the treasure hunters who flooded San Francisco during the gold rush were actually being quite clever with a play on a word that when they created the nickname. Well, I sincerely doubt that the miners were harking back to Middle English, but it is a fascinating coincidence, isn't it? In an 1868 short story by C.J. Everett, published in the Genteel Godey's Ladies Book and Magazine titled The Gentleman from Honolulu, one of the refined characters has picked up some slang on his trip to California and wishes he were back in Frisco. One of his sisters says, "Frank, we are tired of hearing you talk of Frisco. Where in the world did you get that name for it?" And he replies, "Oh, that's the pet name the boys give their beautiful harbor city, the pride of the state. You ought to hear them shout for Frisco as they throng into the What Cheer House of a gala day. And at the Occidental is tossed off many a bumper to Frisco and the ladies." Roughly translated, the boys are raising a glass to Frisco and her ladies. One of the most commonly told origin stories for Frisco hinges on the departure of the ship Bark Eliza from Salem, Massachusetts, leaving for San Francisco on the 23rd of December in 1848. With a crowd gathered to see the ship off, 3 passengers and crew members appeared on the deck and sang a song that set fresh lyrics to the tune of Stephen Foster's new hit, "Oh Susanna." And they sang, "I soon shall be in Frisco, and then I'll look around, and when I see the gold lumps there, I'll pick them off the ground." Any number of sea chanties of the time refer to San Francisco as Frisco. There is a great recording available on Bandcamp or as a CD, San Francisco Sea Chanties of the Gold Rush Era by Dick Holdstock and Company. I'll put links in the show notes. Here's an excerpt from the song Frisco Ship.
Oh, a ship, she lay by Frisco Bay to meet way, hi-oh, hi-oh. Our ship, she lay by Frisco Bay a long time ago. Our smart Yankee clipper lay out in the bay to meet way, hi-oh, hi-oh. All waiting a wind for to get underway a long time ago. Oh, we sailed from Frisco in a full rig ship to meet way, hi-oh, hi-oh. We sailed from Frisco in a full rig ship a long time ago. Her mast was silver, her yard.
My favorite Frisco song from the album is Shanghai Brown. I put an excerpt of the recording on the first episode of The Secret History of Frisco, so I won't put one here, but I will read a few lines, and you'll see why I love it. When I first went to Frisco, boys, I went upon a spree. My hard-earned cash, I spent it fast. I got drunk as drunk could be. Before me money was all gone, or spent on some old whore, I made up me mind and was well inclined to go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. I made up me mind and was well inclined to go to sea no more. The night I spent with Sally Brown, too drunk to roll in bed. Me clothes was new, me money was too. In the morn with them she fled. Feeling sick, I left the house and went down to the shore. There I went, me head all bent, and the crimps at me did roar. The crimps at me did roar. Crimps was a slang term for people who tricked men into basically getting on a ship and sailing away by any means necessary. So the term Frisco seems to have been perfectly respectable up until the early 1880s, when public attitudes about the term began to shift. We should talk about Emperor Norton a little. He remains one of Frisco's most infamous and most beloved characters. Born Joshua Abraham Norton in England around 1818, he arrived in Frisco around 1850. In very short order, Joshua had made himself into a very prosperous and respected gentleman. He knew all the right people. He was a member of all the right clubs and committees. He was invited to all the important parties. He stayed in the best hotels. He had access. He had arrived. Then, in 1852, a famine in China created a shortage of rice, driving prices up 900%, and Joshua was presented with an opportunity to corner the market by buying at 12.5 cents a pound, as opposed to the prevailing 36 cents a pound, a shipload of Peruvian rice in San Francisco Harbor. The price was $25,000. He put $2,000 down with a contract for the rest on the 22nd of December, 1852. Had things gone as planned, Joshua stood to make a very handsome profit indeed. But the next day, and then over the next 2 weeks, several more shiploads of rice arrived from Peru, all of superior quality to what Joshua had bought. The price of rice plummeted to 3 cents a pound, and suddenly his good deal looked very, very bad. Joshua sought to void his contract on the grounds he had been misled. The matter was tied up in litigation for nearly 2 years, at great cost. Finally, in October of 1854, the California Supreme Court ruled against Joshua. This ruling all but ruined him financially, and he tried to regain his footing by running for San Francisco tax collector in May of 1855. He did not win. He was forced to file for bankruptcy in 1856. He continued to cast about for a new role in San Francisco, announcing his candidacy for U.S. Congress in August of 1858. When the election took place in September 1859, he was not on the ballot. In July of that year, Joshua had taken out a paid ad in the San Francisco Daily Evening Bulletin newspaper. The ad was a brief manifesto addressed to the citizens of the Union. It outlined in the broadest terms the national crisis as he saw it and suggested the imperatives needed to rectify the situation. He had been living in a Kearny Street boarding house since his bankruptcy. The accommodations were decidedly below the high style to which he had become accustomed in his first few years in the city. A little more than 2 months later, and just 10 days after the election of September 7, 1859, the one in which he had not been a candidate as he had earlier announced, Joshua was back in the pages of the same paper with the following proclamation. At the peremptory request of a large majority of citizens of these United States, I, Joshua Norton, formerly of Algoa Bay, Cape of Good Hope, and now for the last 9 years and 10 months past of San Francisco, California, declare and proclaim myself Emperor of these United States, and in virtue of the authority thereby in me vested, do hereby order and direct the representatives of the different states of the Union to assemble in Musical Hall of this city on the 1st day of February next, then and there to make such alterations in the existing laws of the Union as may ameliorate the evils under which the country is laboring, and thereby cause confidence to exist, both at home and abroad, in our stability and integrity. Norton I, Emperor of the United States. Instead of ridicule, the people of San Francisco largely embraced Emperor Norton. They treated his pronouncements with respect and affection. Local businesses accepted his self-printed imperial currency. He was given a reserved seat at public events, and the police saluted him on the street. Emperor Norton wore an elaborate blue military-style uniform, adorned with feathers and a beaver hat. He patrolled the streets of San Francisco, inspecting the condition of the sidewalks and offering his opinions on civic matters. Politically, he was a true progressive and a social visionary. As reported on the EmperorNortonTrust.org website, he was an adversary of corruption and fraud of all kinds. He was a persistent voice for fair treatment and enhanced legal protections for immigrants and racial and ethnic minorities. He demanded that African Americans be allowed to ride public streetcars and that they be admitted to public schools. He commanded that the courts allow Chinese people to testify in court, and he pronounced that the eyes of the emperor will be on anyone who shall counsel any outrage or wrong on the Chinese. He proclaimed, with respect to Native Americans, that all Indian agents and other parties connected with frauds against the Indian tribes were to be publicly punished. He was a religious humanist and pluralist who favored church-state separation and warned against the dangers of Puritanism. He supported women's right to vote. He was a defender of the people's right to fair taxes and basic services, including well-maintained streets, streetcars, ferries, and trains. He issued decrees demanding that bridges be built to connect both the East Bay and Marin County to San Francisco. Emperor Norton, we salute thee. When he died in 1880, his passing was deeply mourned by the city, and his funeral was one of the largest San Francisco had ever seen, paid for by the citizens. But back to Frisco. In 1872, the good Emperor Norton issued a proclamation about the term Frisco, which was duly reported in all the local newspapers. It read, "Whoever, after due and proper warning, shall be heard to utter the abominable word Frisco, which has no linguistic or other warrant, shall be deemed guilty of a high misdemeanor, and shall pay into the imperial treasury as penalty the sum of $25. That would be about $650 today. So even here the emperor was ahead of the curve in terms of popular sentiment. "10 years after his Frisco proclamation, an English author, T.S. Hudson, warned travelers not to use the abbreviation while visiting the city. In his 1882 travel book, A Scamper Through America, he wrote, "All Spanish names and expressions are proudly retained, and you must never be heard using the irreverent abbreviation Frisco." A scamper through America? For some reason, I don't think T.S. Hudson ever scampered across the Great Plains, up over the Rockies or the Sierra Madre, or anywhere past the Upper East Side of New York City, perhaps. Later, the judiciary weighed in. A 1918 issue of the San Francisco Examiner reported that Judge Edmund P. Morgan chewed out a witness, a Los Angeles auto dealer, for using the term Frisco 4 times in his testimony. "No one refers to San Francisco by that title, except people from Los Angeles," said the judge. "Don't do it again." As we all know, Los Angeles is anathema to any true San Franciscan. Around that time, the San Francisco Call newspaper opined, "There never was and never will be a Frisco. Neither before the fire nor since has this shabby abbreviation, born of vulgarity and laziness, ever been tolerated in this neighborhood." As I mentioned at the start of this episode, Herb Caen wrote a book called Don't Call It Frisco, and here he expounds on it. He wrote, "Don't call it Frisco. It's San Francisco because it was named after St. Francis of Assisi, and because Frisco is a nickname that reminds the city uncomfortably of the early brawling, boisterous days of the Barbary Coast, and the cribs and sailors who were shanghaied, and because Frisco shows disrespect for a city that is now big and proper and respectable." That was the acceptable stance in 1953. In 1956, speaking to the GOP delegates at the Republican National Convention at the Cow Palace, San Francisco Chronicle columnist Stanton Delaplane said to the throng, "You can call Los Angeles L.A., you can call Chicago Chi, but if you call San Francisco Frisco, they will cut your Republican buttons off and drum you out of town." In 1954, when my old friend Bernie Jarvis founded the San Francisco chapter of the Hells Angels, the patch on the back of their jackets said Frisco. How could it have been anything else? Bernie was the real-life inspiration for the television series Then Came Bronson, which was kind of Kung Fu or Route 66, if you know those ancient shows, but on a motorcycle. It lasted for one season in 1969 and has a cult following now. I got to know Bernie in the 70s and used to drink with him at the M&M Tavern at 5th and Howard, a block from the San Francisco newspapers. He was a police reporter by now for the Chronicle. He retired in 1987 and moved to Alabama. This has nothing to do with Frisco, really, but I want to share an anecdote. Bernie died on June 3rd, 2012. I hadn't seen him or given him much thought since he had moved away 25 years earlier. I was at home one Saturday night, June 2nd, to be exact, hanging out with my cats, and he popped into my mind. I decided to track him down and say hello. I Googled him and found a bunch of articles, videos, and interviews, one of which I posted on Facebook. The next night, a mutual friend of ours from the Chronicle called me and told me that Bernie had died that morning. I do not believe in coincidences. I think Bernie was flying around the night before, saying goodbye to everybody. Emperor Norton was Frisco. Bernie Jarvis was Frisco. San Francisco, Frisco, is unique in so many ways. The geography, the bay, the air, the Pacific Ocean, the hills, the fog, all of it. But the only thing that has ever made Frisco Frisco is its people. That will be a central tenet or refrain in the secret history of Frisco. There have always been hints of elitism in the disdain for the term Frisco. It evokes strong opinions, often along the lines of local versus outsider status, class, and cultural identity. While some longtime residents and cultural figures have vehemently opposed it, seeing it as disrespectful, others, particularly within working class and minority communities, have embraced it as an authentic and even defiant nickname. In 2022, Gunna Goes Global, a local rapper, said, "Frisco comes from Black San Francisco. The word was popularized among Black San Franciscans before hip-hop fully bloomed, going back to the Black Panther Party of the 1960s. To say Frisco is to stand in solidarity with Black, Latino, Samoans, and Filipinos who are still here. That is why to ignore this part of our lexicon is erasure." Even Herb Caen finally came around at last. He wrote, "It makes you feel good all over once in a while to say Frisco right out loud. A salty nickname, redolent of the days when we had a bustling waterfront." I would add to that opium dens, gambling joints, all-night saloons, restaurants, and bordellos, of course. Well, we opened with Herb Caen, and so I guess we'll close with Herb Caen. I'm glad he lightened up a little bit about Frisco in his later years. Do you call Frisco Frisco? I would love to bring Frisco back, not just the word, but the long-gone city the word evokes. I'm not sure that will ever be possible, but we will visit it here often in the secret history of Frisco. I'm your host, Knox Bronson. Please join me at the secrethistoryoffrisco.com website, where you can find the show notes for these episodes. Please sign up for free at the Patreon page at patreon.com/Frisco. Frisco is intended to be a listener-supported podcast. Main episodes will always be free, and for the next couple of months, all episodes will be free. But ultimately, bonus episodes, like this one, and other perks, will be available at the paid tiers starting at $1 a month on Patreon. If you know any stories from San Francisco of the 1930s and 1940s that I should research and report, please let me know. If you have some expertise in some aspect of that era and would be willing to be interviewed, please let me know. If you have friends who enjoy San Francisco history, please tell them about the podcast. And please, have a little fun. Call it Frisco.